Hey everyone, my name is Noah, and today I'm going to present my analysis, inventory, and kind of next steps of Tobie Brantley Park. So to begin with, I kind of did into the historical analysis, understanding, the context of what we're designing for. So beginning with the establishment of early growth surrounding the establishment of the Georgia Pacific Railroad, and kind of how that really shaped and kind of founded the economy and really community around this area. Transitioning into kind of the establishment of Eupora, transitioning from early growth to Eupora, from Eupora UD, and then further progressing into the story of Tobie and Sedalia Brantley. From there, kind of going into the mill train and what that meant for the MLK movement and kind of the implications of civil rights in Mississippi, but also the broader cultural South. Progressing then to the selling and kind of establishment of Tobie Brantley Park. Then proceeding to dive into the segregation or desegregation of the kind of surrounding schools, understanding that Mississippi was one of, if not the last state to desegregate, and kind of what implications that kind of project onto design and society as a whole, kind of culturally. And then kind of fast forwarding a little bit more to 2023, when that sales tax was implemented to the Public Works Department, and then kind of that first phase one of the renovations for the park. So the implementation of the shading structures, kind of regulatory size courts and things of that nature. And then, so that kind of wraps up the historical analysis, and then I kind of wanted to dive into kind of a regional context, kind of better understand what and where we were designing. So for that, I kind of looked at a figure ground map, understanding the density and kind of size and population of what we were designing for, who we were designing for. And then looking at primary arteries, so what are the main methods of transportation and kind of the highest traffic roads. And that's seen here. For then, I did into site context, so understanding that we were located in Mississippi in Webster County in the city of Eupora, as well as our surrounding site. Then I did into zoning and land use, kind of understanding the different implications of zones surrounding our site, whether that be residential, and then there are 2 commercial lots around the site as well, the park zone and the public zone with the school directly adjacent to it. Then I kind of looked at existing site analysis and inventory, kind of understanding what's there, what does that mean, and what are the implications of that. So for that, I kind of wanted to look at what's there, understanding it, and analyzing it. So the first thing that stood out to me was the approach. As you pull up to the site, it's kind of really isolated. It's cut off from everything in a way. You have a really hard edge from the school, and then as you progress onto the site, it's surrounded by this natural edge of the woodlands. So it's kind of really isolated in a way. The second thing I noticed as we got to the site was the one singular tree in the middle of the site, as well as the kind of topography, understanding that it is sloped, and it all feeds down to kind of the southwestern corner of the site where the creek is located. And then I also realized, for me, something that stood out to me was the berm that was kind of created from the clear cut of the site, or what I believe to be created from the clear cut of the site, and kind of what issues that creates with drainage in that area, preventing watershed from flowing directly into the creek, which is kind of what was resulting in that dry creek bed area in a way. So that was kind of my understanding and analysis of that, understanding the connections to the school, the adjacent neighborhoods, and residential areas of that nature. So really looking at edges, what are those conditions, shape, and form. And then moving into the SWOT analysis, understanding the strengths of the site. The topography is actually a strength. It's something that as designers we have the potential to work with. So often in design and architecture and a lot of things, our gut instinct is to clear cut something, to make it flat, and we lose a lot of kind of potential of a site with that. There's a lot of ways to kind of integrate design into topography, different terraces, different platforms, different zones and areas, and what kind of spatial feeling that creates in an area. So that was a strength for me, as well as the creek. The creek provides a really strong feature of the site. It's kind of a way to connect users to their environment, to an ecological factor, as well as an educational factor, being right next to the school. How can we use that connection as a strength to kind of pull students and visitors into that park, teach them about the environment in which they're in, and kind of what are the broader implications of that environment? Where do we live, and kind of the things that surround us. Then, that being the weaknesses, the parking. The parking is kind of an issue. It's not really developed, and kind of could be an issue for mobility, for access and different things, as well as the fact that there's only one entrance. Like I said earlier, it's kind of really isolated. You're on that site and you have no visuals of anything around you outside of the site. So no eyes on the street could kind of become an issue if it's not properly maintained and taken care of. For opportunities, like I said, the creek is a really strong opportunity for the site. It gives us a way to kind of connect with nature and kind of serve as an out for our often hectic and busy days. As well as the connection to the school. I feel like that could be a really beneficial factor, connecting, broader parts of the community in one place and kind of serving a whole network of people rather than secluding it to one kind of neighborhood or community or things of that nature. For threats, kind of understanding right now that that barrier for the school does kind of serve as a threat. It serves as a threat in the means of isolation. Like I said, when you kind of approach, you're isolated. You feel cut off, not really understanding where you're at and what you're around. And then diving into budget. Right now, while the tax is a great thing, if we're not kind of looking at the broader implications and things of that nature, that could impact the park, that could become an issue, as well as kind of upkeep and maintenance. But while it is a threat, it's also something that doesn't have to be. Mr. Mays, as you said at our first meeting, just because something's broke doesn't mean we can't fix it. So then moving forward into kind of my conceptual diagram. For this site, I really wanted to look at approach through narrative or storytelling lens. So often we say the name Tobie Brantley Park. We say Mr. Brantley's name, but do we really know who he is? So as we approach the park, kind of creating that narrative experience of every time you walk through that park, you're hearing and seeing the story of Mr. Brantley and his family. So that would be located here, as well as kind of a parking service area, kind of more quiet, reflective garden, just transitioning into this kind of ecological zone, as well as a picnic or trail area, as well as transitioning here into kind of this grand lawn or amphitheater area, kind of a space for public events and things of that nature. Then transitioning to the back of the site, the north of the site, which kind of serves as like a sportsplex zone. So what can we do to kind of amplify what's already there in the sense of kind of rethinking it? From what I understood from the presentation at our first meeting, it was kind of a highlight of the site. This highlight of intergenerational activity and experiences that kind of come together around those sports. So how do we kind of amplify that in a way that kind of expands it in a way, as well as connecting that kind of sportsplex to a children's playground, kind of having that intergenerational activity kind of near one another, adjacent, kind of connecting them. So moving on from there, I kind of looked at some conceptual images, wanting to really highlight and emphasize the entry of that. So for this image, kind of creating this walkway, this grand entrance that's framed by different storytelling boards, different signage that kind of tells that story and amplifies that name and voice. So looking at some case studies for that. I looked at the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. It's in Montgomery, Alabama. If you've never been, I would highly encourage it. It's a really beautiful project. But it tells a really hard story. It tells a story of civil rights, of injustices, and things of that nature. And it's difficult, but it's a beautiful space and something that someone from anywhere can come to and kind of see, hear, and experience a story. For me personally, experiencing that site, seeing the kind of monument with my family's name on it and kind of the injustices that occurred there was touching in a lot of ways. But it creates a really grounded experience. Having this space for reflection, it has a wall with a quote on it. It's a really, really awesome quote that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was really impactful. And I think having that space for reflection and kind of different events and things of that nature would really serve not only the community, but also kind of a broader understanding of who Tobie Brantley was and what his impact had on Eupora. Then my next case study, I wanted to look at the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens and kind of their discovery gardens. So how do we tie that ecological feature back in? They do a really great job of kind of navigating a user through different zones. So whether that be a wetland buffer, prairie, a woodland, they kind of use paths and kind of circulation as a way to navigate a user through these different zones and educate them as well. So I thought that was a really well done design. They also incorporate features like this, like insect hotels and things of that nature that can really serve the community and educational aspect of the site really well, especially to tie that into the school. How do we kind of bring children to that and educate them of the environment that they're surrounded in? So that was kind of my understanding and dive into analysis of the site, so understanding that this kind of area would tie up to here where the creek is, and this would kind of be along that entrance and approach to the site. So thank you all so much for listening.
All right.